Hi, my name is Delmarshae Walker. Welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is having a great day today. What I want to talk about is the incident that happened with China and the spy balloon they had floating over certain parts of the United States. But first, what I want to do is share a couple of videos with you, and then I'm going to come back and give my opinion.
The 3% of farmland owned by foreigners has attracted controversy, specifically a focus on China. Lacking farmland, China has struggled to secure food for its 1.4 billion citizens. Just recently, in August, 4 Chinese government departments warned a drought posed a severe threat to the autumn harvest. That has driven overseas investments in food, including the purchase of Virginia-based pork producer Smithfield Foods and partnership with Growmark, a grain logistics firm. Chinese companies own about 1/5 of 1% of American agricultural land per USDA data. But some lawmakers say Chinese firms shouldn't own American farmland at all.
America cannot allow China to control our food supply. And the President and the Congress should end all farm subsidies for land owned by foreign nationals.
In a July letter to the Agriculture Department, 19 Republican lawmakers said China commits intellectual property theft and has been prosecuted for attempting to steal U.S. seed DNA information. Various congressional bills seek to bar Chinese ownership of farmland.
This amendment would prohibit the purchase of agricultural land in the United States by companies from China, Russia, North Korea, or Iran. The People's Republic of China is only interested in reaping every possible benefit from U.S. land without giving back or considering our future.
14 states limit in some way the foreign ownership of farmland, according to the National Agricultural Law Center. But in Grand Forks, North Dakota, the issue has recently brought national attention and controversy. In the fall of 2021, the city proudly announced the sale of land to a Chinese-owned conglomerate, Fufeng USA.
Fufeng USA chose Grand Forks as their flagship location for a wet corn mill. This will be the largest single private investment in the history of our region.
When I think of the value that Fufeng brings to the industry, to our region, I think of a few things. Success as a community in the future, population stability and growth, great jobs.
Not every day does almost $1 billion facility want to be built into your community.
The North Dakota Corn Growers Association said they were excited about the project, but local opposition has been strong.
You people are want to bring communist China to Grand Forks.
The corn mill will sit about 15 miles from an Air Force base. On cable channels, including Fox News, politicians have raised concerns about espionage.
Let me tell you what's going on in these Air Force bases. Number one, the one in North Dakota has some of our most sensitive drone and space technology that connects our space assets to our drones. So to intercept that from a few miles away isn't that hard.
In July, politicians requested that the Federal Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States investigate the sale. The committee is now looking into the purchase. The company and city officials, meanwhile, say the plant is not a national security threat. Fufeng USA's chief operating officer, Eric Chudarash, told reporters in March, quote, "I know we're not going to be asked to be collecting any intelligence on Grand Forks Air Force Base. The workers in the plant will be Americans. I can't imagine anybody in the facility would participate in that."
Beyond the spy balloons, a network of Chinese agents is at work right here in America. Their mission is to hunt down, intimidate, and even kill pro-democracy dissidents. In cities across the U.S. and the world, these agents operate out of so-called police stations. Dale Hurd brings us the details.
Above this noodle shop in New York's Chinatown, agents of the Chinese Communist government operated an overseas police station for years. There are more than 100 of them worldwide. They don't usually look like a police station. They may only be back rooms, but they're staffed by Chinese government officials. The police stations, along with so-called aid stations across the U.S., are used by the Chinese government to harass and threaten pro-democracy Chinese immigrants to stop speaking out against the regime and go back to China, even kidnapping them if necessary. One of their targets is Li Jianji, a pro-democracy activist who was tortured repeatedly in Chinese psychiatric hospitals before he was able to flee to the U.S., where the persecution has continued. Xi, who does not speak English, told us Chinese government hitmen in the Los Angeles area have tried to kill him 3 times, twice with a car and once by stabbing him in the neck, calling him a traitor as they fled the scene. Chinese government agents and supporters regularly film and disrupt pro-democracy demonstrations in American cities. They warn activists they're being reported to Beijing and that their family back home will be arrested. A recent New York Times report made it look like the FBI is on the case, highlighting a raid on that Chinese police station in New York's Chinatown. But that raid happened last fall, and the FBI didn't shut it down, it only gathered evidence. When we asked the FBI if it's closed any of the Chinese police stations across the U.S. or brought charges against anyone, it declined comment, saying that FBI Director Christopher Wray's testimony to the Senate Homeland Security Committee last year would serve as the agency's statement on the matter.
We are aware of the existence of these stations. I had to be careful about discussing our specific investigative work, but suffice to say, I can tell you from an FBI director perspective, I'm deeply concerned about this, and I'm not going to just let it lie.
Semiconductors are critical for everything from weapon systems to microwaves. And currently, the world's biggest manufacturer of these chips is Taiwan, although China is set on taking over global production. As Brody Carter reports, that could mean a chip war in the making.
The key to dominating international technology and computing power rests in semiconductor chips, basically the brains of modern electronics. And you might be surprised the United States isn't the world leader in this multi-billion-dollar industry. It's not even second. The U.S. government's goal is simply to stay ahead of China.
When we look at the world's most advanced chips, Taiwan makes 92% of them. Matter of fact, one company in Taiwan makes 92%.
The small island of Taiwan clearly dominates the world's semiconductor market. That single manufacturer Cheng refers to is TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, and Apple is its biggest customer.
So if it were knocked offline, we'd face a huge economic crisis because of our inability to get the chips we need.
Tufts University professor Chris Miller is the author of Chip War, the fight for the world's most critical technology. He says the Taiwanese company's dominance in semiconductors makes OPEC's 40% share of world oil production pale by comparison.
Today, China spends as much money importing semiconductors as it spends importing oil. And it buys those chips in large part from U.S. firms that make great business selling to China.
The chip industry is made possible by a symbiotic relationship among key countries that forms a very complex supply chain. America, the world's largest market, also makes up 40% of the total value of this international supply machine.
Today, if you want to make an advanced chip, the most cutting-edge chips that you find in a smartphone or data center, it's simply impossible to do without using software from the U.S., machine tools from the Netherlands, the U.S., and Japan, ultra-purified chemicals from Japan, as well as manufacturing capabilities in Taiwan. It's an international process.
Just 3 years ago, China's tech giant Huawei was TSMC's #2 customer. Then the Trump administration tightened restrictions, preventing Huawei from getting chips developed by the U.S. due to espionage and national security concerns.
Huawei is something that's very dangerous. You look at what they've done from a security standpoint, from a military standpoint, it's very dangerous.
If Taiwan were taken over, or even if Taiwan wasn't taken over, but there was a war in the Taiwan Straits that Taiwan repelled, even still, the shock to semiconductor supply chains would cause a deep depression in manufacturing industries worldwide. And the reason is that today, all types of goods require semiconductors. It's not just smartphones or PCs, sort of high-tech goods that you might think of. It's your car, which might have hundreds of semiconductors inside, your coffee maker, your microwave, almost anything with an on-off switch today has semiconductors inside of it.
More importantly, Miller told CBN News microchips has revolutionized American warfare. Semiconductors made in Taiwan are used in F-35 fighter jets and a wide range of U.S. military-grade weapons and defense systems. Since the world's entire tech ecosystem can't function without these chips, that makes the sovereign island ground zero for a chip war between the U.S. and China.
That means that the world's made-to-order chips are made on China's doorstep. Both South Korea and Taiwan are vulnerable, and it is not inconceivable that China could take over both of them.
That's what makes the Communist government's Made in China 2025 plan to make the country dominant in global high-tech manufacturing a true threat to the U.S., both economically and militarily.
As China's become stronger, it's become more belligerent, more provocative, more aggressive. This is perhaps the greatest mistake America has made throughout its history, and it's a mistake that we may not survive.
Okay, I have done other videos where I spoke about China spying on America or having the ability to spy on America. And, you know, it's something that the United States government know about. It's something that the United States know about. United States government, they allowed China to buy land close to one of their, you know, air bases and stuff like that. So it's like, was that air balloon a distraction from something else that may have been going on? Because if they have actual boots on the ground in the United States, they have options and access to spy on the United States from within. We have an open border. Even though they keep saying Americans are working in these factories, you know, different things like that, isn't there a thing called espionage where America have turned on their countries in the past, or other countries have turned on their countries to help America out? So what does it really mean that it's only Americans working in the factory? As if they can't choose the person that's paying them, which is China, because they basically work for China. So China is paying them to work in these factories. So if they had loyalty, who is it going to be to? United States or the person that's putting food on their table, China? So it's really hard to say, is that, you know, is China spying on America? Yes. But to what extent, what information they have, how far they're willing to go is really hard to say. And then the other thing that I wanted to touch on or kind of like think about, if we did happen to go into war, actual war with China, it's not going to benefit either country. United States and China trade is imports and export both ways. And back in 2020, it was around $56.0 billion worth of trade going back and forth between China and the United States of different goods and services. That America was sending to China, I think it was around $40 billion worth of stuff being exported out to China. And I think China was importing around $15 billion worth of stuff to America. So if we had a war, how would that look? We still get pharmaceutical medications from China. China, you know, sends us food. We get different food products from China. So if we went into war, exactly how would that look? You know, because it's going to be, not only is it going to cost us to go into war militarily, it's going to also cost China. But don't we have to stop importing and exporting goods? You know, like I said, that's like $50 billion worth of import-export going back and forth between these two countries. So wouldn't they lose money? And then obviously they need what they're having imported and exported out. They need it as part of the infrastructure in each country to keep it functioning. If not, why would they need to import and export? So it's going to hurt them on different levels if a war broke out between America and China. So like I said, you know, it's you know, people be asking, I heard the question asked, is America scared of China? Is Biden scared of China? I don't know if it's fear or he's looking at everything else behind the scenes as far as how intertwined we are with them. It's hard to go in, it's easy to go into a war with somebody you don't need and you see them as your enemy. But it's hard to go into war with somebody you see them as your enemy, but you're dependent on them at the same time. So how do you wage a war on a country that you need? Either way, back and forth. So, you know, even though Biden said if China went into war with Taiwan, we're going to jump in. Like I said, I don't know how that's going to look. We already have people from China over here. We already know how China do their own people. They spy on their own people. They went to extremes to put things together to spy on their own people. We understand they're killing their own people. They're over here in America trying to get their own people to go back to their country so they can lock them up. So what love do China really gonna have for the United States? So it's like, it's not a question of are they spying? It's a question of what are they doing with the information? That's the real question. Yes, they're spying. So the actual question is, what information do they actually have? 1, 2, what are they going to actually do with the information that they do have? And I said it before, I keep saying it. China's goal is to take over the world. If you look, China got on land in almost every continent on the planet. They got land there. So, that they own, because, they loan people money for infrastructure, but then they turn around and people can't pay. So it's like, oh, now we own a part of your country. So that's basically all I wanted to say. That's all I want to get out. And I hope everyone is having a great day. Peace.